Greta is back for a historically hideous season.
It's our 100th ugly house. This place is mayhem. That is impressive.
And if these walls could talk,
Do you cry a lot?
I do.
they'd have a lot to say.
What in God's name is this pit?
Don't get too close.
You know, if you've seen the show, I'm a scaredy cat.
Ugliest House in America, season premiere, Wednesday, January 7th at 8 on HGTV.
Hello, I'm Diane Morgan. If you know who I am, you know who I am. If you don't, who cares? I'm here to explain Italian Time, a holiday phenomenon where Italians throw away their clocks and gather for eternity with San Pellegrino. I've been at this party so long that I've eaten 5 courses, hugged someone's grandma twice, and been offered a job in the family restaurant. So this holiday season, make sure to bring enough San Pellegrino to last you through the meal, the after meal, and the entire goodbye ritual. San Pellegrino, holiday on Italian Time.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn, and I hire an energy vampire. But also, they're a literal vampire. And suddenly, my team is spending all their time sharpening wooden stakes and buying bulk silver and rehearsing ancient chants, and then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant takes insights from over 1 billion professionals to create a short list of the best fits for you. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
The little lamb to the shepherd boy. Do you hear what I really am a mean and despicable creature at heart, you know.
You may wish to adjust the dial. You're currently tuned into the wrong station. I can remember it perfectly. Every beat over the course of several weeks. Not necessarily all the fluff in between, but every important moment has been crystallized into a film slide that I can pull up in my mind, like I'm clicking through a Viewmaster. It was December the year that I turned 7, and the most important thing to me in the world was getting the newest gaming console. It consumed me. All the boys in my class had already gotten theirs the month before. It was all they were talking about. After images from those scant few hours I could steal going to their houses after school were burned into my eyelids, playing on repeat as I tried to sleep. I had to have one. And, to be frank, I couldn't be the odd one out. But it wasn't going to happen. Sorry, kiddo, I just don't know if it's in the budget, my dad told me when I asked. I remember him going down on one knee and putting a hand on my shoulder, speaking a bit more softly. But let's ask the big man up north and see what he can do, eh? There was a lot I didn't know yet, but I did already know that the big man was only real in movies and commercials. Still, I dared to have a little hope. For 3 weeks, my stomach was one big knot. My friends would ask me what I was getting for Christmas, and I wanted to throw up. My dad would come home from work, drop his coat and briefcase, and sigh, sit down at the table, ask me about my day, give me a smile I didn't quite understand, give my mom a knowing look I didn't quite understand. And then, about midway through the month, something in the air changed. My dad came through the door one night with a bit more energy, a bit more pep. Didn't even take off his coat. He came in, ruffled my hair as he passed through the living room, went into the kitchen where my mom was making dinner, grabbed her and dipped her and gave her a big kiss. Bonuses came early, honey, and even more than we thought. Mom lit up as they whispered the numbers and details to each other, and watching them from the next room, many worries I'd had washed away. The holidays rolled around shortly after, and, as I'd known it would be, that beautiful purple box was wrapped up under the tree. It was the best Christmas of my life. Like I said, there was a lot that I didn't know yet, but also a lot that I was just on the cusp of knowing. That, while we weren't as well off as other families in the neighborhood or at school, we weren't paupers. That my dad was engaging in a bit of Christmas theatrics. That his bonus wasn't some unexpected miracle, but a known quantity, or at least within a certain range. But still, from that year on, the holiday bonus held a certain mystic quality to me, as something that makes the impossible possible, a symbol of upward mobility, clawing your way out of the day-to-day grind. Which, I know, sounds a bit ridiculous to say, but with the way things are now, feels less and less ridiculous every year, to think of it as this unlikely miracle. I work as a consultant, not at one of the big four, but at a pretty sizable firm. Offices on several floors of a big building in the financial district, all that. I do well enough, but not quite well enough. You know what I mean? I easily make more than my dad did at his age, but it just doesn't go as far. With my mortgage and expenses, there's a certain downtown lifestyle I've locked myself into. I feel like I'm underwater most months. And last December, well, let's just say a bonus didn't seem likely. We, as a team, were not meeting targets. I want to say 25% of people were on a PIP, and a lot of folks were going to be lucky to keep their jobs in the coming months. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't any of ours. Targets on deliverables and tasks constantly moving, and not moving down, you can be sure of that. I truly felt like I was just fucking up. At work, in life. That the life I wanted, my father's, with the house in the nice residential neighborhood, and rolling into home at 6, able to leave the day behind, as opposed to still craning over my desk at 8:30, scarfing down cold glass noodles and burning my retinas out poring over audits. That mystical life was sand falling through my fingers. And this was the state of mind I was in when Mel called me into her office. Mel was my team lead, and actually it was a shared office, but it was half hers. Come in, have a seat. Straight to business. Mel's desk was neat and tidy. Not much to catch your eye other than an overfilled folder, clearly filled with team member evaluations, and a few carefully curated photos. One of her and her fiancé, side by side on a ski hill. Banff? I asked, as she clacked away at her keyboard, just finishing another report. Yeah, she answered, without turning. We're doing Verbier this year. I seethed a bit with jealousy. But Mel was a killer, and you couldn't help but respect that, and the perks that came with it. Anyway, she turned back. I've got something I need you on. Very high priority. Before I could stammer something about my current workload, she added, your current projects and clients are going to be assigned to other team members. Shit, this was serious. I wasn't really sure what to say, which was fine because Mel plowed on. We've got a legacy client, Asher Pharmaceuticals, that desperately needs to trim the fat before the end of Q4. Trim the fat. That's most of what a consultant does, in case you were always curious. And in this case, that would probably mean letting a bunch of people go right before the holidays. My stomach sank. And Asher. It took me a second to remember, but I had heard of them. Old client of the firm. A bit of an unusual company culture, and very, very difficult to please, folks said. A notorious meat grinder for new associates. And old ones too, apparently. I just sent you all the details, Mel continued. You can start on that today, and you should. They'll be expecting you. Can I ask? I managed, as Mel shot a glance back at me. She'd already turned back to her screen. Why me? This sounds pretty urgent, and I don't have any experience or relationship with the client. Mel exhaled through her nostrils. It seemed like she was annoyed that she even had to explain it. Look, here's the deal. I don't expect you to get this done to the client's satisfaction. But I can't put someone on this who's going to crash and burn, and I can't waste a stronger team member trying to indulge these nut jobs. Even if you fuck up, it probably won't be a total disaster. We'll put someone else in the account, and you'll survive. Probably. I just sat there, a little shocked. But only a little. It wasn't like I didn't already know my place in the pecking order. "It's not all bad," Mel said, turning back to her other work. The final word she'd say on it. "If you do a good job, you'll get that bonus for sure. It's not like you were getting it before." The next morning, I was down at their offices, going through physical copies of financial statements, payroll documents, budgetary reports, towers and towers of unopened cardboard boxes behind me. I hadn't even been given an email, just a single phone number. When I called the day before, I wasn't sure if I was speaking to an admin assistant or a VP. "Mr. Cargill is an analog guy. It's his strong preference that business be conducted, services be performed, in person." So, there I was, and like people at the firm had whispered, it was odd. It was hard for me to even point out what the company did, or rather, what it produced, where its revenue came from. It was a pharmaceutical company, but actual production of commercial drugs was minimal. Most of its efforts, it seemed, were tied up in research. Projects with names like Maximize, Purity Plus, Live Again, or Bite Force. Any attempt to glean more details about these projects was dismissed, casually but firmly, by Mr. Cargill himself. "I'm sorry, my boy, but you've only just come in and hung up your coat, and now you want the keys to the shop to take a look at all the cupboards? It won't do. Simply not how we do things." Peter Cargill, proprietor and still active CEO. He was an older man, maybe 65, but he had an old-world air about him. For all I knew, he could have been 85 and simply in exceptional health. At the very least, he dressed like he was 185. An off-white three-piece, in a sensible cut, but extremely well-fitted, midnight blue leather shoes with intricate stitching, precisely groomed, moon-white hair with a long goatee, many rings and other accessories, in gold, carved wood, and maybe carved bone as well. An office festooned with odds and ends from what looked like years of travel and collection. He had a saber hung above his desk. "Mr. Cargill, I understand your concerns, but if I can't look further into the books and get a sense of day-to-day operations, it'll be difficult for me to determine where there are redundancies and areas of bloat." "Bloat?" He looked me up and down with mournful eyes. "My boy, you have me all wrong. Asher is not that kind of company. Every employee is like my own child, and no child is left behind. Certainly not at Christmas." He spun his chair and faced out the window. "You'll have to find another way." Well, that was a relief to hear. In one sense, you don't like being the guy advising companies to cut staff, especially this time of year. But on the other hand, that's just how it worked. When you want those kinds of results on that timeline, making the books black to impress shareholders at the end of quarter, you fire people. It doesn't matter if you have to spend even more than you saved hiring and training replacements the next quarter. That's not the point. It's about results and milestones. And here I was, working for the one guy who didn't seem to understand that. Salve to my soul, sure. But the milk of human kindness wasn't going to get this job done. It wasn't going to pay my fucking mortgage or get me this bonus. Fine. I'd find another way. I went back to the paperwork, working through nights to try and find something, anything I could latch onto. Fuck, if I could find a department spending too much on toilet paper, that at least would be something. That's when I found it. Funny enough, it was when I was looking at toilet paper and expenses on other office supplies. There was a team, a project called Nodalore, and while I didn't have all the information I'd have wanted, I certainly had enough to know that this was not a revenue-creating project, or even something that had been on the company's radar for the last 5 years. There wasn't mention of it in agendas or memos or even recent audits. But it did draw cash for expenses, and while there weren't any listed team members, there were staff in the general directory who, as far as I could tell, were not assigned to any other ongoing projects. Someone had done a good job of burying this. Or rather, they'd done an all-right job, and it was just very difficult to find anything you might be looking for in that mess of files and paper Fraud. That was my guess. Someone cooking the books, drawing pay and expenses for a project long since shut down. This was good. This was very good. If I could get to the bottom of this, that was something concrete I could show to Cargill. It would have to be worth something. But how to proceed? There was an address listed, a lease for a building out in the industrials on the East Harbor front. I checked my watch. 4 a.m. Shit, I could just go now. There probably wouldn't be anybody there. I could snoop around and get a little more to go off of before bringing this back to Asher. I threw on my coat and headed out into the early morning. No snow. There hadn't been any snow that December. Just bitter cold. I got out of the car at Lakeshore East and walked from there. I didn't want to alert anybody who might be around. But again, I thought the place was far more likely to be abandoned. To my surprise, though, after circling the warehouse, looking for the right entrance and finding it, there was a light on outside, a single caged fixture beside the door, burning salt orange. But maybe they just left that on. I tried the door, but it was locked, of course. I paced a bit, thinking of how to get in while also trying to keep my feet warm. Where could I get tools at this hour? Or maybe I could just grab a cinder block and break the door handle, kick the rest in. And then I heard a click, and spun around as the door was unlocked and slowly opened about halfway. A man was standing there in the doorway, backlit from harsh fluorescence within, and his face half-lit from the light outside. Older, stubbly, and saggy-faced, wearing a dark shirt and slacks and a security vest. Just there in the light, not clandestine at all. I tensed a bit, my heart quickened. But he just stood there, quite at ease. "Yep," he said. "Told Dr. Minute they'd come eventually. Best to just cut and run. But what do I know, eh?" We stood there in silence for a moment. I think he'd expected me to actually answer. "Well, I guess he'll be coming in. No point trying to hide anything. Come on." He beckoned, and slowly I let my hands fall to my side. Didn't look like we'd be squaring up. Not yet, anyway. Yes. Please," I said. We walked through, winding our way deeper and deeper into the building, past the cramped entrance and security office, into the wide-open, empty warehouse, and then back into tight hallways, past the kitchenette, which had all those misappropriated paper towel rolls and bags of coffee and wooden forks. And finally, to the end of these hallways, and a dull steel door. "That's as far as I go," said the guard. "I don't want to see what happens next. I'll consider myself let go." But as he turned, I called after him. I almost didn't, just so struck by how surreal this all felt. "Wait, just wait. What the hell is this place? What's going on here? What's behind this door?" He exhaled. "Something that shouldn't have been done, but can't just be undone." But maybe you got more of a stomach for that, huh? Merry Christmas, kid. And then he was gone. Maybe it was the lack of sleep, maybe it was my confusion, but his words made me furious. Maybe I had the stomach for it? Stomach for what? He was accusing me of something. Based on what? The fact that I wear a decent suit? That's enough to make me some corporate bagman? And even if I was, who was this old fuck to judge me for doing whatever he thought I was going to do? Hadn't even done it, didn't even know what it was. Go home and cry to your family then. It wasn't the 90s anymore. We couldn't all win. And besides, I wasn't the one at fault here. He was. Him and whoever was behind this door. It swung open with a soft groan. Unlike the rest of the building, the lights here were dim, soft. The room was crowded from floor to ceiling with machines and filled with soft sounds of those machines. Red dots blinking, the occasional, barely obtrusive beep. A table strewn with handwritten notes and coffee cups and a half-eaten sandwich. Normal things, you know. And in the center of the room, something not so normal. It was a large, circular glass cell, maybe about 10 feet high and 15 feet in diameter. The machinery that housed the glass, like the base and lid of an enormous jar, and seemed to be feeding information out to the surrounding computer banks, looked far more sophisticated than anything else in the room. You could also hear the quiet hiss of an air ventilation unit that must have been on top of the cell. This, though, was still in the realm of what I knew, what I could have imagined was going to be here. It was in the shape of a person, roughly. 2 arms, 2 legs, a head. Sort of. But again, only in a rough sense. There were no fine details, no digits, just one webbed mitt. No face, so to say, just 2 nostril slits and a mouth hole, gumming at the air. No skin, just a pink, translucent film. No hair, no nails or teeth or ears. And covered in sores, ugly, darker and redder patches that seemed to secrete pink slime. And every few seconds it would burp up and dribble some of this goo as well, letting it just fall down its body like a kid at a theater who's had too much popcorn and soda, throwing up, running down to fall to the floor, and then through a fine grate that led to who knew where. They finally sent someone, huh? I whipped around. She must have been there the whole time. I don't know how I hadn't noticed. She was pulling on the last dregs of a cigarette. Throwing it down and putting it out, she stepped forward, a bit more into the light. She wore a stained lab coat, and had her hair in a high, messy bun, and a pair of round glasses sat low on her nose over very tired eyes. Dr. Minute, presumably. I don't suppose it'll matter if I show you the numbers, how much I've learned and can refine the process now, growth and development reports. The name we gave him. I didn't know what to say. For what felt like the 100th time that week, I just stood there with a blank expression. But my own tired eyes must have looked very callous, because her face twitched. She got closer, became more emphatic. Jesus, look at you. Cargill couldn't even come himself. Send some Deloitte-looking motherfucker at 5 a.m. And Ben just let you walk right in, that fucking turncoat. Look, miss, I don't know who you think. No, you don't know. No, you don't fucking know. You don't know what I've had to do to keep him alive. With nothing. With no help. I didn't ask for this. But he's alive. And you can't just pull the plug. She was in my face now, eyes wild and flecks of spit hitting my cheek. She hadn't slept for at least as long as I hadn't. That was clear. Probably longer. A soft thunk to my left made us both turn our heads. The goo-covered man, goo thing, fuck, was pressed against the glass. It looked at... I don't know, it didn't have eyes. It looked at one of us and just made this moan, this ooh sound. And that just broke her. Oh, fuck, she said. She stormed over to the desk, ripped open a drawer and reached in, and pulled out a gun. I froze. I saw God. I was 7 again, playing Double Dash for the last time ever. Then, tears started streaming down her face, and she lurched forward and shoved the gun into my hand. You do it. You fucking do it. I don't. You fucking do it! She brushed past me and punched a command into the console next to the cell. The glass depressurized and opened with a hiss and a bellow, and the air in the room suddenly felt 10 degrees warmer, but only for a moment, as the cold then swept in to suck away the heat, causing the goo man to shudder. "Just fucking do it. Do it quickly." I raised the gun. No, wait, what the hell was I doing? It crept toward me, and Christ, there was a sort of curiosity to the way it tilted its head, wasn't there? A childish clumsiness to the pigeon-toed way it walked. "What are you waiting for?" she said. I still couldn't. I was so tired. "Fucking do it!" She pounded on my back. Pop, pop. A moment of silence. Then it got up and started creeping toward me again, 2 gaping holes in its head. Not bleeding, just excreting. Not its head. He doesn't have a brain, you fucking idiot. His heart. Shoot him in his goddamn heart! By now, it was right up on me, practically leaning into the gun. Still vacant, just craning up at me with a little... I thought about my dad. I doubt he ever had to do this for his bonus. But that's just the world we live in now. "Sorry, kiddo," I said. "What a catch," said Cargill. "Excellent work, my boy, excellent work." I hadn't even gone home that morning. They were still pink, splotching my coat and pants. Terrible oversight. I don't know how it could have happened. But thank you again for closing the book on No Dolor 6. I looked up. The lack of sleep had finally hit me, and I'd been drifting off, staring at a taxidermied secretary bird. No Dolor 6? Oh, yes, there have been many attempts, and many attempts since iteration 6. What we're trying to do, I feel like you've earned a peek under the hood, is commandeer the process that produces serotonin, and use that to fabricate a sort of dummy that can extrude a constant, self-sustaining font of topical and consumable analgesic. But it seems things just fell through the cracks this time. Analgesic? Then maybe it... I dared to hope. So it was like a painkiller, man. It didn't... Whoa there, let's be very clear, my boy. Not a man. No cerebrum. Very much not a man, legally. Yes, sir. But it didn't feel anything. Oh, Lord, of course it did. We wouldn't have moved on if we'd gotten it right. I sank back into my chair. Cargill put a hand on my shoulder. Yes, son. I know. Progress is slow, and it is painful. But now, with the books in good order, the shareholders will be satisfied, and we can get the green light for No Dolor 17. And one of these days it will be a success, and we'll have you, in part, to thank. He beckoned me out of the chair and walked me to the door. Until then, though, we'll also have you here to catch any little mistakes. You go get some rest, son, and enjoy the holidays. I'm a bit of a legend at the office now. And Asher is still my account. That's where most of my billing comes from, in fact. I cleaned up some more messes since then. I'm even starting to be able to sleep with just one Ambien. And the holiday bonus? Oh, yeah. And the year after that. One of these days, I'll start looking for a place outside the city. You know, put together a little nest egg and start taking dating more seriously. That first year, though, I splurged on a trip to Verbier. Something quick and easy to make me feel like I'd made it. Turns out, I hate skiing. The Wrong Station is made possible with the generous support of our listeners on Patreon. Join us today at patreon.com/The Wrong Station for bonus episodes, behind-the-scenes content, ad-free listening, and additional goodies celebrating our decade of dread. This week's episode, Bonus, was written and performed by Anthony Botelho. Thank you to Sharia Dubé, Ian Lay, Exalted Warlock, Erica Johnson, Gus Dahlman, Will Bowser, Gigi McGee, Marcus Schoen, Emily Burkhart, Ev, and a very special thanks to Asher and Ginny Jane Minute for helping us get the lights, well, off. The Wrong Station is co-produced by Alexander Saxton, Anthony Botelho, and Jacob Duarte Spiel, with music composed and performed by Alon Citrin, and arranged for the viola and performed by Viola Schmidt. You can follow us on social media at The Wrong Station, or email us at thewrongstation@gmail.com. And until next time, thank you for listening.